Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. And my name is Abhijit Bhaduri, and I'm going to be your moderator today. So I'm a leadership and transitions coach, and I'm going to talk to all of you about your journey. So let's get started. And we have Vaishali here, who's going to also talk to us, help me talk to the people about what makes Nestle such a phenomenal brand management company. And just in terms of quick numbers, Nestle is a 84 billion Swiss franc company, and you've got about 2,000 brands. You operate in about 189 countries. And the Association of Nestle India is 108 years. So let's get going. So let's get started. Akshari, hi. Would you introduce yourself and just tell me about the kind of role that you have? What do you do? How long have you been with Nestle?
Sure, Abhijit. First of all, really excited to be here and discuss about that how Nestle is a top brand management company. So, just to tell you about my journey, I started with Nestle in 2015, straight out of college. Joined as a management trainee, worked with Kit Kat, which is like a much loved brand in my first year. Moved to Bangalore for sales, had a factory stint in Ponda, which is our chocolates factory. So you can imagine how exciting it was
Yeah,
working in a chocolates
completely.
factory fresh out of college.
Yeah, this sounds
Post
like my dream job.
I know. I just felt like Willy Wonka. Like it was so amazing. But yeah, so from there I moved to like taking a full brand management role and working on Munch and Polo. So Munch is a again a much loved wafer brand, and then Polo is our iconic mint. Post that, I handled beverages and dairy category for the entire West region in a trade marketing role. So it was a mix of both trade understanding and marketing. And then I moved to hardcore sales role, doing a field role for 1.5 years in Mumbai city. So I was ASM and handling a large part of Mumbai. And then I had another transition and I moved to culinary business of Nestle India, and I was handling Maggi sauces. And currently, I am working with the Maggi noodles team for Nestle Sri Lanka. So I have been expatriated to Sri Lanka, and I'm working for Sri Lanka now.
So, when you look at Nestle in terms of its brand management, do you guys use some kind of a framework which, talks about the Nestle way of building a brand kind of a thing? And, or is it something which is like any other FMCG? Would you talk to us about that?
Yes, so Abhijit, so see, to be honest here, in every brand management role, functional knowledge is a must, and a bit of creativity and some bit of good analytical skills to read the trends actually adds a lot of value in becoming a successful brand manager. But if you're specifically asking that what does Nestle offer, so Nestle has very robust frameworks in building brands. So we in fact have a framework which is BBNW. So it's it's as fancy as the acronym. So it's building brand the Nestle way, and it actually draws a very interesting parallel. So just like we would build a house by making different by making foundation, different rooms, and then you move to the top and you have an attic. Similar kind of thing. So we do build our brands like a house. So we start with like our foundation is understanding our consumer, and at the same time understanding that how our brand has a purpose and what's the brand essence. And then we move to the next level, which talks about building our portfolio, which is sustainable and innovative, and at the same time creating brand experiences, because we don't talk about brand marketing, because marketing is something which is more like company forward, but we talk about experiences because that is consumer forward. We think consumer at the center, and then in the end we talk about planning and executing flawlessly. So it's very similar to what we experience in our day to day basis of building a house. It's the same thing that we build a brand. And We start with, like I said, we start with a basic consumer understanding, defining our target group, understanding the insight, and then moving on to the big idea for the brand. So that is where the magic happens, when the big idea translates to product, to comms, to packaging, and then that's where a brand gets built.
So maybe you should actually change that phrase and say that's where the magic happens. So you should do that. I just thought that
Abhijit,
when you
on that point, then we all are magicians in that sense.
yeah, magicians,
Magicians,
magicians.
yes.
Yes, absolutely. And you've had a pretty interesting. If I picked up the thread from what you said, you started off in as a management trainee in sales and marketing. But did you start with marketing? Did you start with sales? Which of the two was that?
I started with marketing. I started with marketing, moved to trade marketing, then moved to sales, and then again came back to marketing. So, Abhijit, it's not a set path for at least in Nestle.
Really?
What Nestle offers us is that it gives you a variety of exposure to actually broaden the horizons, and that is cross functional, which can be sales, it can be marketing, it can be like trade marketing, like I said, and then at the same time it also gives you cross category exposure. So the good thing with Nestle is that we have so many brands and category that we have freedom to move across category, and also geographies, like you mentioned in your intro, we are present in 189 countries, so it's a huge base where we can travel and learn.
How many have you ticked off so far?
Only two. But it's,
Oh gosh! So you have 187 more countries to go. But
yes, and
hey,
it's a
listeners, just a quick reminder that if you like something that any of the speakers have said, all you need to do is just swipe and the center where you have got the Mensa logo, the blue bar, and you will be able to create a small audio clip which you can share on social media. So with that, Vaishali, you've been very quiet. So why don't I hand over to you?
Thanks, Abhijit. So, listening to Akshari's stint in sales, it reminded me of my days when I joined Balsara Hygiene Products, which is, of course, now Dabur. And after induction, when I went on the first day to office, I was told to hop onto a truck and go for ready stock van operations. And I was like, this was not told to me before.
And you said,
And
"This is my dream job. This is my dream job. I want to sit on a truck and go." You know.
I was like, what will I tell my parents? And after going home, that this is what I did with three men, and the sales rep and all the sales managers on the field were like, "ये head office se aayi hai," and she's going to complain types. And it was such a surprising experience, but I think that experience taught me the most in my career. And so from there, Akshay, I would like to ask you, what do you have to say to students who are right now pursuing MBA and want marketing as their specialization, and they are really dreaming of making fancy ads? So what is your experience going to tell them?
Hi, Vaishali. Thank you for that one. Yes, when you talk about, I think firstly, one thing that both of us share is having been in a truck. I would have done the same thing in Nagaon district in Assam, going with a ready stock unit to ensure that every single outlet has a Maggie and a Nescafe in those outlets as well. So that's something we share mutually. And yes, when we talk about brand management and marketing, especially if I dial back to my days in B school, what I thought about was like a starry-eyed MBA grad was marketing is going to be about making these fancy ads, interacting with celebrities, and wait for your billboard to be up on the busiest highways in Bombay. That was what I thought a lot about marketing. But the fact is, there is a lot before that happens, and sales is a foundation for marketing, and that's something I would and request all of us to be aware, especially the students who have joined in, that sales is a foundation, and especially those of us who get an opportunity to start, do a sales role, be it as an area sales manager or in terms of trade marketing exposures in the initial phases of your career. You are in great stead, because I remember the day when my HR told me that for your sales stint you have to go to Guwahati, then sometime in Shillong, then Bihar, Patna, Kolkata. When I heard of these places, I was a bit kind to go into my shell and say, no, I really don't want to do this. I would be happy in a Bombay, a Delhi, or a Bangalore. But needless to say, it was the most enriching phase in my career, because after my management trainee stint, I was given the task of being an area sales manager for the state of Telangana, and I think that's been the most one of the most enriching experiences, managing a team at such an early stage in my career.
Thanks, Akshay. So we move on to Shubham. So Shubham, would you like to, tell us about the sales teams, direct and indirect, that you would manage during your sales stint? I presume that all the three of you have gone through the sales stint.
Sure, Vaishali. So, when you are working as an area sales manager, as Akshay mentioned, you will have set of reportees who will be looking at a certain pockets of regions. Those are called sales officers in Nestle. Roughly, each of the area sales manager will have around 4 to 5 direct reportees. Also, what do happens is you will have a lot of indirect reportees as well. So basically, people who are actually the foot soldiers and actually ensures that your products are available on the ground. So you kind of manage them as well, ensuring that what is the motivation behind these people, ensuring that every day they have to wake up at 9 a.m. and go to the market, ensure that your product, which and Nestle has like hundreds of SKUs, ensuring that each of these SKUs are available in each of the outlets which are there. So it's a heavy task, but what it ensures is in your future, in your growth journey, as you become a leader, what happens is these all things comes into play. Seeing people who will be in a managerial position, seeing what are their motivations, what are their goals, and also seeing the indirect reportees, for example, who are on the ground, what are their different kinds of motivation. And this actually helps you when you are brand managers to ensure that how can I motivate them to ensure that my product sells well. So this is what sales actually taught me as a leader, which now helps me as a brand manager.
When you look at managing this whole range of people, you from what you said, I figured that you've managed a couple of people directly as well as some people in an indirect way. Is that correct? I mean, did I understand right?
Yes, Abhijit, that's correct.
So, how large is that chunk of people that you manage? Is that does it keep growing? And because in many of the business schools, when people think about what they define as progress, they say that it's one is that steady promotion that in 1 year I'm this and second year I'm that. And already we kind of saw that Akshay said that there is no such defined path, and Akshari also mentioned that saying that there is no defined path. So, I just quick question to all three of you: how many people, when you first became a people manager, or right now, if you were to just sort of say, how has that number changed? The number of people you manage. Actually, let's start with you. And how many people would that be?
So Abhijit, when you are in sales, it's a like a lot of stakeholder management. It requires a lot of people management skills. So we have a direct reporting team of around 4 to 5 people, and if you talk about the extended team, it will be more than 50 people because you will have distributors, their salesmen, which is the foot soldiers, merchandisers. So it's roughly you handle 4 to 5 direct reportees and 50 indirect. But when you come to marketing, the game changes because you can become an individual contributor depending upon the scale and the size of the brand and the fact that Nestle is a flat organization. So you can be an individual contributor, and at max you can have 1 or 2 reportees. So it's not something which is fixed. And I
So, is
think
it,
having
no, go
reportees
ahead.
might not be the best indicator of progress in a sales and marketing career.
I fully agree with you. But you know what? One of the things which is interesting is you started off with a larger number of people and then sort of land up having less number of people, which is again another thing which is quite common in many organizations, except for the fact for some strange reason when we think about it before entering an organization, we sort of that becomes a big measure. Akshay, what was it like for you in terms of the number of
Uh,
people you managed?
It was a similar situation, Abhijit, where I had about 5, 6 direct reportees and upwards of 50 indirect reportees, and I think the what stands out is, especially what was unique is that was perhaps my first role, and I'm just out of training, and you're managing such a big team, and at the same time, you perhaps would be. I had a situation where I was managing people who are far more senior to me. So you have to have that understanding that yes, my performance is contingent on this team's performance. There are people who are far more experienced than I am. So what is it that as value I can bring to this team to ensure that we together win as a collaborating as a team? That's something that stands out more than number of reportees, if I may say. And as you transition to the marketing stint, what will stand out is you are working in a super flat organization with respect to Nestle, at least. Between me and the director of the business, there would be one layer only. That's how close you are to the director of the business. And because it's such a flat organization, and you get an opportunity to interact with such senior leaders on a day in day out basis, what happens is that all these brands that we have grown up loving and looking up to, be it a Nescafe or a Maggie, you are working closely with individuals who have shaped these brands, who have made these brands to be what they are today. So that's, I think, what stands out for us as we transition through this journey.
And Shubham, when you look at the different categories that Nestle operates in, so there's a great variety, whether, and I'm just speaking three or four that I kind of have some perspective on. One is the nutrition part of it, where maybe you're talking to doctors, healthcare workers, mothers. And then there are impulse categories, then there are consumer categories, all of that. One very important shift, perhaps, is the way that you learn to manage stakeholders. How does that change? Talk to me about what is unique about each of these stakeholder relationships, and I'm going to come back and ask the perspective of Akshari and Akshay as well. That how does that change?
So yes, Abhijit. So in terms of what Nestle offers is a huge variety from, let's say, a nutrition to a chocolates, which is more impulse, and then again you have varieties in terms of out of home to in home, etc. Stakeholders management across these categories to an extent remains the same. There will be slightly higher dependency on some of the stakeholders in each of this. What is critical is Nestle as an organization gives you as a power as a project manager, as an PNL owner as well. So when you are a PNL owner, you are a project owner. What too happens is you are responsible for whatever is happening in this brand. So right from what is happening in the manufacturing side, how is the manufacturing happening, is the resources which are being used in terms of packaging, is the resources which are used being in terms of value chain, are all of these are most optimized, because you want to give to the consumer the best possible product at most optimized rates. So what too happens is you manage all these stakeholders who are not directly reporting to you, but to an extent also have a responsibility towards you. And what will happen is when you manage these kinds of project, you will have the decision making powers, and other stakeholders, whether it be in supply chain, finance, will look forward to what you are saying in regards to your brand to take the decision forward in these projects. So that is the level of stakeholders management which we do on a daily basis.
Yeah, and Akshari or Akshay, either of you, happy to have your perspective. What do you think? What do you need to learn to be successful as you manage these different kinds of stakeholders? Actually, maybe you can start by sharing your perspective of what do you need to do differently with these different stakeholders. Is there a skill difference?
So, Abhijit, I think I'll start with something which is common, because rather than talking about difference, let me talk about something which is common across stakeholders. So, y- as a as a brand manager, or as somebody who wants the work to be done, or to us to as a behave like a team, we need to understand that what is the motivator and what is something that we can do to add value to the other person. Because say for example, I'm working with supply chain person, I need to understand the KPI that the person has and how I can contribute in him achieving that KPI, which is like his key performance indicator. The moment I understand that, and the moment I know that what how my brand can help in doing that, then it becomes like a team effort. So you have to understand the motivators and how you can add value to that stakeholder. That is one thing. The second thing which is critical in handling the stakeholders is empathy, which I believe is the most critical thing, and that is where the success lies. Because like we started with sales, right? So we talked about that how sales is important. The most important thing that sales tells you is that it's a humbling experience, because you understand the efforts that go into selling a product. You start thinking not just about your brand and like what you are like making as a product, but you start thinking about how the sales team is going to sell it, how the retailer is going to put it in the market, how the distributor is going to hold the stocks, and what the salesman is going to say to the retailer when he's selling it. So it's like you start thinking from all the perspective, and that is where you get the empathy. And that goes on to all the functions, be it supply chain, be it packaging, be it communications team, or even we have, because we are a food marketing company, so we have a lot of interface with the legal and regulatory, because we are governed by laws and regulations. So understanding all those things, understanding how critical their work is, that adds a lot of value. And for every stakeholder it's different, because everybody has different motivations, but as a brand manager I think it's a very critical task to understand that.
Vaishali, if you had a question.
Yeah, I just was thinking about empathy and its importance today while we've started talking about it today. But I think it's been there in practice, and it's been used by sales and marketing, and I think all employees for quite some time. It is something which is so subtle and which is so it's not in any PPTs, but it needs to be there.
Yeah, and Akshay, I would sort of build on what Vaishali just said, that when you were in B school, and as you look back on that particular stint in B school, what is the one subject that you wish you were taught that would have prepared you better for success um, in Nestle? Which is not to suggest that you are not successful, but it would be a great thing to include for all B school students in case they are looking to Nestle. And the follow up to that question is also, would that list change if it's a lateral hire?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, and in a lot of cases, I think what we had studied back in the days, and what we are doing, there is a lot of gap between that part. A couple of aspects I wish we would have been taught when we were back in school is how you can make decisions, how you read data to make decisions, how perhaps you can how what is the role of consumer research, what is the role of these are important aspects I think we need to touch upon during our B school days as well. And most importantly, I think to an extent a lot of the B schools do, but the importance of going beyond our course curriculum and participating in activities, or be it your committees, etc. It is critical, because it's not just an exposure, it helps you understand how you work with teams, because that is not a skill set that can be taught, that can only be experienced. And if you are coming onto a company, if you're joining a company and immediately fresh out of college you are expected to manage a team of 50 odd people, then you can't be someone who is a novice and expect to, I will take an year's time to figure this out. And exposure to such